Just 3 years ago, almost to the day, I was hired for my first real teaching job at Livonia GSRP. For those of you who don't know, Livonia GSRP stands for the Great Start Readiness Program. The Great Start Readiness Program is a free preschool to low-income and high-risk families. This being my first real teaching job, I would be lying to say I wasn't overwhelmed. The whole year I just felt like I was playing catch up, whether it was lesson planning, conferences, or just the day-to-day. It was a constant struggle to stay ahead of the game. But June 5th, 2018 hit, and boom, that's me. Last day of school. The catch-up was over and I was done with my first year of teaching. Despite the feeling of constant chaos this year, I couldn't have asked for a better first year. I had an amazing team that stood by my every decision despite being a new teacher, and the kids in my class grew in ways I couldn't even imagine. Honestly, it was one of the best feelings I've ever had. Naturally, that next year I felt the need to step my game up, but not only in my classroom, but in my education as well. And I decided to apply to grad school, and I got accepted. I went back to my alma mater, Eastern, to get my master's in curriculum and education. Seemed easy enough, I thought. Curriculum, instruction, it's something I do every single day. But much like grad school should, it opened my mind to ways of teaching that I never really thought about before. More specifically, the idea of 21st century teaching. This concept wasn't necessarily new to me. I mean, I had heard about it in undergrad, but now I have my own group of students that I had to apply this to. And my group of students are preschoolers, this crazy gang. This concept of 21st century teaching to preschoolers is something I've never really thought about before. And I definitely thought I failed about it in my first year and second year of teaching. So now I need to figure out, how am I going to make my preschoolers ready for 21st century education? To start this journey, I decided on to reflect on what it meant to be a 20th century learner. I started kindergarten in 1999, so I wanted to refresh my memory on 20th century education a bit. I want to bring you back to the 1960s. Schools were just starting to integrate, kids were starting to go to school longer, and America was beginning to industrialize. New methods, processes, and machines were essentially constantly being introduced. The new phase of education was to prepare these students for this industrialized education in a world that depended on standardized products. These children are growing up and working on the line, and school was preparing them to do just that. Students focused on memorizing facts and working just on their own. Teachers led all of the learning with some assistance of textbooks. Students didn't have any freedom to learn anything they were interested in or learn beyond the four walls of their classroom. Ultimately, much of the learning was meaningless and irrelevant to the students, and it just simply prepared them how to act in the industrial era. Now, with this in mind, I was getting a better idea of what I had to do. 20th century learning was teacher-led, independent work, and a lot of sitting. And thinking about this, I'm not a 20th century teacher, but at this point, I'm still not sure. Am I a 21st century teacher? Am I stuck somewhere in between? I needed to keep looking. I don't know about everybody else, but when I picture 21st century, I picture this. Jetsons. They were literally sold as a 21st century family. But where are the flying cars? Where are the floating desks? Am I supposed to be a floating robot? Now, I do know this idea is a little bit ridiculous. It's just something I have stuck in my head. So I need to update my thought, like, where's 2019 in all of this Jetson talk? And now I have this stuck in my head. Kids on virtual reality goggles, one-to-one iPads, one-to-one laptops for all the students. And I look at this image, and I know this isn't my reality. 100% of my families come from a low-income background. We are fully funded by the government, and we don't even have enough money for paper at times. So looking at this, I wonder, how can I teach preschoolers for the 21st century with such limited access to technology? So I continued on my search to figure out what it really meant to be a 21st century teacher. And was it more than just access to technology? When I first looked at society, we definitely don't have the same world as the 1960s. So that society nowadays is a mix of different beliefs and cultures. Globalization has opened up the world and allowed people to connect in new ways. We develop knowledge from beyond the classroom with our life experiences, and all children bring these to the classroom every day. This idea and concept is far from the values we had in the 1960s. People are not working in factories like they used to. This demands for a new skill set in education and to be taught in our schools. This is where I stumbled upon the 4 C's of 21st century skills, kind of outlined in this diagram. The skills are laid out as critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. These skills are essential for modern students to succeed in the workplace. And did you notice? Technology is not one of these skills. So now I'm going to break down each of these skills and discuss a little bit more about them. First, we have critical thinking. With critical thinking, it's all about solving problems and discovering what's true. It makes kids think their favorite question, why? And it prepares students for being independent and having a purposeful thought. This is something I do in my classroom. Next, my favorite, creativity. This combined with critical thinking can really make something special happen. Creativity is a way of thinking outside the box. Kids don't have to do things the way they were done before. Instead, they can think of better ways, and these ideas can spread to others when they collaborate. Collaboration just really makes these other skills shine. Collaboration is working together to achieve one goal. It helps kids realize that not everyone thinks the same, and you know what? That's okay. It encourages kids to speak up when they have an idea, and this is tricky, even for adults. But this is an important skill to start at any age. Next, we have communication, and this is a key factor in integrating all the skills with one another. Communication in this case is being able to express yourself not only with words, but through text as well. Children need to be able to get across their thoughts and ideas to their parents and their teachers. That way we can help them learn and achieve what's best. These 4 C's are so basic, but if you really think about it, children need these for every and any reason. Critical thinking teaches students to seek out the truth. Creativity teaches students to think in a way that's all their own. Collaboration teaches students that groups can create something bigger and better than what you can do on your own. Communication teaches students how to convey their ideas. These 4 C's, when combined, create what we need in a society and create the ultimate 21st century learner. So after doing my research and being a 21st century learner myself, it dawned on me. I'm a 21st century teacher. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication are all skills I encourage in my classroom every single day. And honestly, I'd wager to believe almost every single minute of every single day. Recently for grad school, I had to create a week-long unit on a sustainable development goal, and I chose responsible consumption and production. Or in preschool terms, I did recycling. And honestly, when I created this, I'm like, I'll just throw in some technology there, we'll watch a YouTube video, we'll use the teacher iPads, and I thought that's what made it a 21st century lesson unit. But I was so off base now that I know all of this. I literally created one activity in all of these that was such a 21st century activity called creating garbage monsters. These students had to think critically. How were reusing these materials helping the environment? How were they recycling? They had to be creative. They had to put together all these different materials to make something new. They collaborated, they worked at one table, they made one monster together, and they ultimately had to communicate to decide what they looked best. That lesson didn't involve any technology. That lesson had all 4 C's. I couldn't believe that that was the activity that taught them 21st century skills. This made me think that I do this in my classroom all the time. The best 21st century lesson I had all year was creating leprechaun traps with my students. I had leprechaun feet all over the classroom and gold glitter, and they came in and they lost their minds. And then their goal all day was catch the leprechaun. This was not incited by me at all. I just created the leprechaun environment, but they took it to a place I wasn't expecting. They worked together to build boxes and tape, and they even put it outside the door. They asked me for food to put inside the boxes because they wanted to catch this leprechaun. This activity is something we literally talked about until the last day of school in June. They still were talking about how they wanted to catch that leprechaun and what ways they would do it again. They were writing the leprechaun notes in the room and leaving them behind. Creating leprechaun traps is a 21st century skill. So when I previously thought I wasn't a 21st century teacher at all, these are the skills that I accidentally, but constantly and consistently want in my students, and it was so easy. So if I can be a 21st century teacher in a preschool classroom, why can't everybody? Critical thinking, collaboration, communication are skills all people need and can be taught at a young age with simple activities like creating a leprechaun trap or building houses for the three bears or making garbage monsters. If it's so easy, why not let your students practice these skills that will make them effective members of society? If I can do it with this crazy but super cute group of 4-year-olds, you can do it too.